Hello and welcome. Thank you. What the fuck? We'll just restart that. Here we go. Hello and welcome to Three's a Crime, a true crime podcast. I'm Tori.
I'm Emily.
And I'm Lindsay.
And that's our intro.
Here we are professional podcasters.
We're podcasters, bitches.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Three's a Crime. Emily's telling a story.
You
Today.
sound like you were wasted.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Three's a Crime. Emily's telling you the story today. Don't threaten us with a good time.
We had a good time. It was a
This
good
is
time.
Three's a Crime podcast.
Three's a Crime is a good time.
Podcast. We get to shout out a new patron today.
Yay!
Yay, Patreon.
Yay,
Yay.
Patreon. Jeremy is
Thank
in
you.
our $10 tier.
The talent.
The talent.
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you, Gemma.
Thank you, Jeremy. Okay, boys and girls. This is Emily, by the way.
Oh, Emily. She's been warning us about this story for like 3 weeks. 'Cause
For
she
a
knows
long
we're
time.
gonna-
It's
month maybe.
it's a little different because murder is involved, but it's not your typical serial killer or any of the stories that we usually cover. This is a case about how a company's corporate greed blinded them into completely disregarding the safety of women's health and how things have really not improved much since then.
Where the fuck are our cookies?
I was just gonna say where.
He's making them.
Okay.
Don't worry. He left to Trader Joe's as I was listen.
Okay.
Listen. Hang on a second. Let me tell you. There's more to this. Okay. So last night I'm at a friend's house and there's this bakery that closes. Brittany.
I'm sure she was-
This bakery closes at midnight. It's like a bakery for stoners. They're
It's
open from like
brilliant.
5 p.m. to midnight. They have these incredible cookies. The cookies are $4 a fucking piece.
Yes.
Or $22 for a half dozen. And I was like, we're going to stop. I'm already texting Tori and Lindsay, and they told me what they want, so we're also going to get stuff for them. And it might just be better if we do the 6-pack because whatever. And Michael's like, okay. And like I hand it to him to pick it, and he's like, $22? And I'm like, well, they're like huge cookie, and I know, and like it's whatever, but
Yeah.
like they're like
Listen,
6 different kinds.
I was ready to send them like $100. Like, just send me
were
however
just
many
going-
cookies $100 would be. Like,
Yeah,
I didn't care.
You're prepared.
well, so
They look
Michael-
amazing.
Michael
God,
goes, I'll
man.
make you cookies. And I'm like, but you can't make them all. There's like all these different kinds. And he's like, Emily, I will make them for you and bring them to Lindsay's house. This gets worse, okay? So then, first of all, we got home last night and all I wanted was a soft serve ice cream cone. So my sweet husband did drive to 3 McDonald's
Oh
to
my
find me ice cream.
God.
I was like, what are you doing? He's like, we're gonna find a McDonald's. I'm like, and my husband doesn't eat fast food. So like for him to drive around to 3
Yeah.
McDonald's is a big deal. But then we're in the shower this morning and straight up he goes, what kind of cookies do you want? And I was like, what? Because I didn't hear him. So I was like, what? And he's like, nothing. And I was like, no, you said cookies. I fucking heard you. And we're standing in the shower and he goes, well, now that I'm thinking about it, like if I make the cookies, I'm not going to have time to bring them by. And I interrupted him and I was like, do not. I said we should go through the drive-thru because it's easier. And you were all, no. I'm going to make cookies and I'm going to go get butter and I'm going to drive them all the way to Lindsay's. And I was like, it would just be easier. And he was like, no. And I was like, don't even start with me. So he left before me to go get butter, sugar, and flour.
Oh my God.
And then he took
What's
Mia for a
there?
walk, and then he's going to come here, I assume. And if he doesn't, I'll lay
Yeah.
the smackdown.
All
Oh
of
my
us.
God.
We want our cookies.
So funny.
Oh my fucking
That I
God.
didn't remember until I was like, where the fuck
I was
are my
actually
cookies?
wondering if you
I
would
looked, I was
remember.
like, cookies?
Yeah, no. Have you guys ever heard of the Dalkon Shield?
No.
Okay. So this story is going to be about that specific birth control device that I'm going to go into and explain. But to give backstory, I'm going to go into like the history of birth control too. So the oldest references to birth control actually comes from the Bible. In the book of Genesis, men are called upon to practice coitus interruptus, also known as the pull-out method. Between 384 and 322 BC, the Greek philosopher Aristotle is thought to be the first person to propose using natural chemicals such as cedar oil, lead ointment, and frankincense oil as spermicides. 23 to 79 AD. What?
I'm just picturing a woman kind of spread eagle.
Essential oil.
I was trying to think of like
doTERRA essential.
I was literally thinking of lead paste going up there, and then just like a chunk of frankincense, just like chunks of stuff. I was trying to imagine how they did, or he rubbed it on his dick. Like I didn't.
The things that we put, like when I read this, and I'm learning like the things that we did to our bodies to prevent pregnancy. Like holy fuck, the things we still do to our bodies to prevent pregnancy.
We are both one of those people.
Oh, I go into it. Don't you fucking worry. Between 23 and 79 AD, Pliny, Pliny. It's a name of a Roman writer. Pliny?
I'm not sure.
The Roman writer of natural history counsels his readers to refrain from sex to avoid pregnancy. He's the first known advocate of abstinence as a form of birth control. 1725 to 1798, Casanova. Casanova includes in his memoirs details of his experimental forms of birth control. He recounts his attempts to use the empty rind of half a lemon as a primitive cervical cap.
I mean, that's kind of brilliant.
I mean,
for the time.
It makes sense.
I mean, it does the same thing that what were they called?
What were they called?
Diaphragm?
Yes, thank you. 1827, in a major scientific breakthrough, scientists discover the existence of the female egg, the ovum. Prior to this, it is only known that semen must enter the female body for conception to occur. This is the first step in understanding the science of human reproduction.
Sorry, I was just thinking about the one sort of positive thing about medieval sex is that they believed that a woman had to have an orgasm in order to get pregnant.
Oh, I didn't know that. Well, fuck, man.
And so, or that she had to be
happy about it.
Couldn't be.
1832, Charles Knowlton, a Massachusetts physician, invents a birth control solution to be injected into the uterus by syringe after intercourse. Oh my God. Various recipes for the water-based solution include salt, vinegar, liquid chloride, zinc sulfite, or aluminum potassium sulfite. The syringe method will remain popular for the next 40 years.
Oh my fuck.
1843, scientists learned that conception occurs in human reproduction when the sperm enters the female egg. Prior to this, it was just assumed that men created life and women just provided the home for it. 1870, a wide assortment of birth control devices are available in America, such as condoms, sponges, douching syringes, diaphragms, and cervical caps, from catalogs, pharmacists, dry goods stores, and even rubber vendors.
Oh my God, can you imagine the yeast infections back in the day? Vinegar up in your shit? Salt. It just
and vinegar.
Sounds burny. Ugh.
1873, March 2nd of 1873, Congress passes the Comstock Law, which is an anti-obscenity act that specifically lists contraceptives as obscene material and outlaws the dissemination of them via the postal service or interstate commerce. At the time, the U.S. is the only Western nation to enact laws criminalizing birth control.
Fucking bullshit.
You know, vinegar really, you can really do anything with fucking vinegar.
You can clean.
You can douche. You can douche.
You can make pickles.
You can eat.
Yeah.
Don't put vinegar in there, but
no, don't. I'm not recommending doing it. I'm just
vinegar
thinking,
is fascinating.
But it's just fascinating. They were just using it for everything.
Yeah.
Yep. October 16th, 1916, the first birth control clinic opens in America in Brooklyn, New York. For the first time in American history, women can receive organized instruction in birth control. Wow. However, after only 10 days, the clinic was raided by the Vice Squad and shut down. The women were all arrested, and all the condoms and diaphragms at the clinic were confiscated.
I hate everybody. I hate them.
By 1919, the first modern IUD is created by a German man named Dr. Richard Richter and is made out of silkworm gut. That IUD was not very popular.
Yeah.
And not long after, the circle IUD is invented. What was the name of that back in the day?
Oh, NuvaRing. That's what I
NuvaRing.
had. I love the NuvaRing.
So not long after that, the circle IUD was created by another German named Ernst Graftenberg.
Why are these German men making birth?
He was a German-born physician and scientist. He's known for developing the intrauterine device and for his studies of the role of woman's urethra in orgasm. The G-spot is named after him.
Oh.
He found the G-spot.
Interesting.
Isn't that interesting?
Is it because he's, like, G-name?
Yeah, Grafenberg. That's
it.
why it's called the G-spot.
G-spot.
Isn't that
Cool.
weird? August of 1920, the 19th Amendment is ratified, giving women the right to vote. In the 20s, scientists working independently in Japan and Austria devised the rhythm method of birth control, which, after figuring out that women are fertile, approximately midway through the average menstrual cycle, they conclude that pregnancy can be avoided by abstaining from sex in your fertile window. By 1926, scientists make a crucial breakthrough in reproductive biology, and they discover that the pituitary gland functions as a remote control system in human production, which leads directly to the invention of the first pregnancy test. 1926.
It's fascinating to think that, like,
Not that long ago.
Yeah,
these things
exactly.
were happening.
well, and
it's
that,
still
like,
shit.
how long ago the IUD was created. Like,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
because that came up in the Grady Stiles Lobster Boy story. Because
Lobster Fuckboy is the name.
Lobster fuck boy.
I didn't even, Tori gave me the name, and Lindsay's like, I think it should be this. I was like, obviously, it's already done.
Yeah.
That's obviously already the title.
Because I think of the IUD as, like, something that came about, like, in the 90s, you know?
Right.
And no, it's been around for a very long time.
Okay, so by 1928, almost 30 years after the discovery of hormones, scientists at the University of Rochester in New York identified progesterone. They conclude that this hormone plays a crucial role in preparing the womb and for sustaining a pregnancy. 1929, the human sex hormone estrogen is isolated and identified. During the Great Depression, companies eager to sell women contraceptives but not permitted to by law used the term feminine hygiene to market a wide array of over-the-counter products that are actually believed to have a contraceptive effect. So,
sneaky.
mhm. One of the most popular products is the simple and cheap Lysol douche,
Ooh.
which I have a photo to show you.
Oh, no.
It's literally an ad for a Lysol douche. And like, if
What does
you
that
look,
say? Too
How
late
I
to cry out
lost
and-
my husband and won him
beware
back?
of
Yeah.
the one intimate neglect that can engulf you in marital grief. Too late, when love is gone, for a wife to plead that no one warned her of the danger because a wise, considerate wife makes it her business to find out how to safeguard her daintiness in order to protect precious married love and happiness.
Oh my god. Fuck you men.
And this is all literally an ad for a Lysol douche. Gentle, non-something Lysol will not harm delicate tissue. Easy directions give correct douching solutions. Many doctors advise the patients to douche regularly with Lysol brand disinfectant just to ensure daintiness alone and to use it as often as they need. For
Wow.
feminine hygiene, 3 times more women use Lysol than any other liquid, blah, 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 blah.
There's a woman drowning in doubt, inhibitions, ignorance, and misgivings.
So,
I think most of us
are aware that that's not
are
the
aware
case.
that putting, Lysol in your kitty, not a
not
good
gonna work.
idea.
I need to say that one of the men on this ad looks like Vince McMahon. And it makes sense for Vince McMahon to be cheating on his wife. I don't
I'm
know
sure
if he does,
that
but he's
Lindsay will
swarmy piece of
probably put a picture of him next to the image, right?
See?
Okay. By December 31st, 1930, the Roman Catholic Church makes its first definitive statement on birth control. Pope Pius XI issues an encyclical titled Casti Connubii, calling birth control a sin and opposing birth control by any artificial means. By the 1940s, the diaphragm is the most effective form of birth control available in America, but the least popular method due to its high cost and the need to see a physician. Instead, most women rely on the expensive but less reliable commercial douches for contraception. Oma told me that she used to douche with Coca-Cola.
Oh, wow.
I have no idea.
I
I have
mean,
no
you
idea.
can use Coca-Cola to clean your engine, your car.
I mean, that does not
And
bode
toilets.
well.
And
That is
toilets,
so
yeah.
weird. By the 50s, Americans spent an estimated $200 million a year on contraceptives.
By the 50s?
By the 50s.
Damn.
Due to massive improvements over the past decade in condom quality and the growing awareness of the inadequacies of douches, Rubbers, or condoms, are the most popular form of birth control on the market. Although the vast majority of doctors approve of birth control for the good of families, anti-birth control laws on the books in 30 states still prohibit or restrict the sale and advertisement of contraceptive devices. It's a felony in Massachusetts to exhibit, sell, prescribe, provide, or give out information about them. In Connecticut, it's a crime for any couple to use contraception.
Wow.
1954, the pill regimen, still in use today, is established. May 11th of 1960, Searle receives FDA approval to sell Enovid as a birth control pill. Searle is the first and only pharmaceutical company to sell an oral contraceptive and has the lucrative monopoly. December 1961, it's still a crime to use birth control in Connecticut, and in bold defiance of Connecticut law, Dr. C. Lee Bruxton, the chairman of the Yale Medical School Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology, and Estelle Griswold, the executive director of Connecticut Planned Parenthood, opened 4 Planned Parenthood clinics.
Hell yeah.
They are promptly arrested, but their case brings national attention to the laws. And the American public learns that thalidomide, yeah, Michael knew what it was too. Had you ever heard? I hadn't heard of it either. A sedative given to pregnant women in Europe to control morning sickness causes horrible birth defects, like flippers instead of arms.
They do. There is a whole, like, I swear, a whole season of Call the Midwife.
Oh.
Which is how I learned about it,
That
actually.
makes sense.
But yeah, no, I mean, like, devastating. Because I think that there's an episode where a woman has the baby and it comes out. And it's like a head and like like no arms, no legs, badly deformed. They tell the mother, I think they tell the mother that the baby died or something like that. But one of the nuns takes the baby and sits it in front of, like, 'cause it's winter, and just sits it in front of an open window and leaves. And I think Sister Julianne comes in and finds it. I don't remember what
I've never watched.
That's terrible.
Oh my God, it's so, you would love Call the Midwife.
I know. I think I've avoided it because it's like babies and shit. I don't know why. It's not my.
I mean, it is babies and shit. I mean, and it is very kind of wholesome. But if you like Downton Abbey,
I love that shit.
You would really like Call the Midwife.
I like how you just said wholesome after describing someone leaving a baby next to an open window. She's like, it's really, really wholesome. You'd love it. I mean, except for when they leave babies by the window.
It's not wholesome, but it kind of is. You know, it's on PBS. It's wholesome in sort of the way Downton Abbey.
In a PBS way. So in the U.S., this drug thalidomide, am I saying it right? Thalidomide. In the U.S., this drug has never received FDA approval, but the age of faith in wonder drugs kind of appears to be over, and the American public begins to question the safety of drugs.
Good.
In the wake of the thalidomide tragedy, the FDA will enact stricter regulations for human drug tests. September 1st, 1962, word of serious side effects such as blood clots and heart attacks caused by the pill begins to spread, and Searle, that company that had the monopoly on it, receives reports of 132 blood clots, including 11 deaths, but the company declares there's no conclusive evidence demonstrating that the blood clots are a direct result of the pill. By 1963, 2.3 million American women are using the pill. By 1964, 8 states still prohibit the sale of contraceptives, and laws in Massachusetts and Connecticut still prevent the dissemination of information about birth control. 1965, just 5 years after the pill's FDA approval, more than 6.5 million American women are now taking oral contraceptives, making the pill the most popular form of birth control in the U.S.
Well, and it's really interesting because, Bailey Sarian did kind of the history of the pill, which is separate from what you're talking about today. But that's its own, just a horrifying situation. So if you want more information on that,
on the pill specifically,
did Dark History.
By 1966, an FDA task force looks into the issue of side effects from the pill, especially the danger of blood clots, cancer, and diabetes. The task force finds no smoking gun, but this does allow drug companies to bring lower doses of the pill to market with less red tape. 1967, 12.5 million women worldwide are on the pill now. Massachusetts liberalizes its birth control laws, but still prohibits the sale of birth control to unmarried women. And then December of 1967, the Pittsburgh branch of the NAACP charges that Planned Parenthood clinics, which provide the pill and other forms of birth control in low-income and minority neighborhoods, are devoted to keeping the Black birth rate as low as possible. In a public statement, the organization declares that birth control is being used as an instrument of racial genocide, and it touches a chord in minority communities, and the term Black genocide catches on. 1968, sales of the pill hit the $150 million mark, and American women can now select from 7 different brands. David Niven and Deborah Kerr, star in the Hollywood film Prudence and the Pill. Birth control, once considered obscene and vulgar, is now a pop culture icon. July 25th of that same year, to the dismay of Catholics around the world, the Pope says unequivocally that the Church remains opposed to all forms of birth control except the rhythm method. And the rhythm method is,
abstinence.
No.
It's abstinence in a particular time period.
Yes. Yeah. Paying attention to when you're fertile. September of 1969, medical journalist Barbara Seaman publishes the controversial book, The Doctor's Case Against the Pill.
That's unfortunate.
To expose...
it's perfect.
Is that a pen name?
That's her name, Barbara Seaman. Seaman.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, it's okay.
All right. Sorry, I'm a 14-year-old boy.
It's okay. My head. Barbara Seaman publishes the controversial book, The Doctor's Case Against the Pill, to expose the dangers in prescribing and consuming high doses of estrogen in the form of birth control. Now, Seaman's objective was to expose pharmaceutical companies' drive for profit over safety. It featured interviews with leading physicians from various fields who expressed concern that the pill had been forced upon them before it had really been proven safe. The book still caused enough of a stir that it started making women really question what they were putting into their bodies. In April of 1970, a Wisconsin senator named Gaylord Nelson held a hearing in April of 1970 about if women even had enough information about what they were taking to be able to make an informed decision about it.
Informed consent. Informed consent.
This event would later be known as the Nelson Pill hearings. This was a huge deal. At the hearing, Barbara Seaman and other women attended the hearings on Capitol Hill. However, they all showed up and all were struck by the complete absence of testimony from any woman. Yep. Everyone at the Nelson Pill hearings was a man.
Yep.
So only men were testifying on its safety. First, while investigating the ineptitude at the FDA, Senator Hubert Humphrey discovered that the scientific trial that led to the pill's approval only studied 132 women who were on the drug for 12 months.
Surprised they didn't study men at that point.
And second, after the pharmaceutical industry spent years denying any link between birth control and blood clots, the British Medical Journal published the results of a massive study that demonstrated an increased risk of death from stroke in young women taking the pill. When pill proponents criticized Senator Nelson for creating a panic, he shot back that if women had been warned about the dangers before being prescribed, they wouldn't be alarmed hearing this information.
Absolutely.
You're literally proving my point. And as a result of the Nelson Pill hearings, a pamphlet outlining the risk and side effects was required in every single pill packet. That's still the same one that I think they still have it in pill packets. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're very long.
You get a huge ass fucking book about it.
Yeah. Can you believe that wasn't a thing?
It's so weird to think about that.
It was illegal to even get information on birth control.
It's just
but you had to take it.
Well, and I mean, we've had that problem. I will say, one of the reasons why I love Ralph Nader is he did a lot of consumer protection stuff. There didn't used to be warning labels on medication.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's true.
And that came from him. But, I mean, pharma has not wanted us to know.
Never.
I feel like I'm going into conspiracy theory land, but
it's not.
Yeah,
there's
but
so
they
many
legitimately
cases,
don't want us to know.
Have you
what
seen the Hulu show
Dope Sick?
Yes,
I haven't watched it yet. It's still on my list.
So good.
I know. I keep wanting to start it, and I know that it's going to be really good, but
Very
it's also just so
terrible,
depressing, and just terrible.
I think that's why I'm avoiding it,
mm-hmm.
even though I love Michael Keaton.
So good. So, one of the men at the hearing, a gynecologist named Hugh Davis, agreed with what was being said. He agreed that the pill was dangerous and instead was like, you guys, there's this new thing called an IUD. Everyone should use that. These pills are super dangerous. Hello, IUD.
Mm-hmm.
So, modern IUDs are a very popular form of birth control today. Lindsay and I both have it. They're a T-shaped device inserted into the uterus and are hormone-based. The Mirena is the best example of the IUD birth control, along with now smaller versions, Skyla and Kylena. So 2 types of IUDs are available. One is covered with copper, and the other releases the hormone progestin, and that's the one that we have.
Progesterone.
No, progestin.
Oh, all right.
They're over 99% effective and can last from 3 to 6 years. Side note, thousands of women nationwide have sued Bayer. This is literally over the IUD that's in our body, so sorry for telling you this. Thousands of women nationwide have sued Bayer Pharmaceuticals over the Mirena birth control after they say it perforated the uterus, damaged organs, and caused pseudotumor cerebri, which is an abnormal fluid buildup in the skull. The hormone can cause an abnormal elevation of cerebrospinal fluid in the skull, resulting in a pseudotumor, which is also known as idiopathic intracranial hypertension, which is you have all the symptoms of a brain tumor without having one.
Fucking God.
Yeah, so that's just something to put in
I
your...
gotta go get... Just gotta
put in your
rip it
cap.
out.
So, at the Nelson Pill hearings, Hugh Davis was getting super stoked about this idea of the SUD. What? Of the IUD.
Sex it up,
Sex it
dog.
up. So stoked, in fact, that someone asked him if he owned any patents on IUDs on the market. And he goes, he mentions...
by chance.
He did co-invent one 10 years prior, but it was never sold to the public. So he's like, I really have no reason to be pushing the IUD, except I really think it's the best thing for women and their well-being. He's a big fat liar.
Yep.
He did invent an IUD. Within the last few weeks, he had sold it to a huge pharmaceutical company. He was obviously going to be making money on the sale of these IUDs, so him being like, oh, everyone's buying IUDs, is like obviously putting money in his pocket.
Yep.
Now, something to know about Hugh Davis is how he viewed pregnancy. He believed that all pregnancies were causing an overpopulation and leading to poverty. Now, he's not technically wrong because this is right after the baby boom, which is when babies were born between 46 and 64. There were a lot of humans on the planet.
Boomer, you fucking boomer.
Boomers. Pregnancy rates were skyrocketing, but he felt that it was his personal mission to stop it.
Great job, white man.
In 1967, Dr. Davis and a friend of his, a former electrical engineer, Erwin Lerner, decided to create their own IUD. And in August of that same year, they came out with their prototype.
What is this? This
Oh
looks like one of the sea creatures you'd find in the dark depths of hell. Holy fuck.
The IUD, actually, do you guys want to explain it?
I thought
What it looks like?
It looks like a keychain that you would use for self-defense.
Yes. It looks like
like you put your finger in there and it's this like pokey thing
because it's just
That's
jab.
brilliant. That would have been so good.
But actually, I mean, like, it's also kind of cute because it does sort of look like a sea creature.
It looks like a little crab.
Yeah,
like a little sea crab.
A little sea, whatever.
with extra legs and
So-
a long fucking
It looks like something
tail.
you'd find on Etsy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's true. You probably could now.
Like
still.
modern art.
Jesus
Like
Christ.
wall art.
So the IUD is kind of round and has a removal string attached, and there are teeth on the edges to prevent it from moving. Remember, like, IUDs are known for literally moving around in the body. Like, completely going through your uterus and just floating around in
It
there.
looks like a little fish.
Yeah.
A little fish that went on an extra tour.
But also having someone who put a T-shaped IUD in my body, the idea of putting something that
With so many
size
pokies?
with so many pokies, I don't even know how you get it out.
I was gonna say,
Because
how are
the
you-
IUD, when you pull it out of your body, goes up. So it's pulling it straight out. The insertion is way worse than pulling it out. And you can't do that with this. It's just
well, no,
fucking...
and imagine trying to fuck somebody and then your dick is hitting that and then it's hitting you. Not fun. Let's not do
Dr.
that.
Davis started implanting the prototype himself into women at his clinic and tracking the results. He tracked over 600 patients in 12 months, and he believed the pregnancy rate with this new and improved IUD was 1.1%, which was lower than any birth control on the market.
I hate him.
By 1969, word of this IUD was starting to spread, and Dr. Davis was even published in the American Journal of Obstetrics and Gynecology. Thad J. Earle, a medical practitioner in Defiance, Idaho, hears about this and starts to use Dr. Davis's IUD. And he's so excited about the results, he decides to invest as a shareholder. So between Hugh Davis, Erwin Lerner, Thad Earl, and their attorney, Robert Cohn, they formed the Dalkon Corporation and named the IUD the Dalkon Shield. At this time, the FDA only monitored medication. They had no regulation over medical devices at all.
That's wild.
There was no regulation
What
of
year
medical
was
devices.
this?
1969.
69. Jesus Christ, man.
In 1970, the A.H. Robbins Company buys the Dalkon Shield, and they launch the biggest ad campaign for a contraceptive than ever before in the U.S. A.H. Robbins is a massive company that also owns Robitussin and Chapstick. Because, we want what's being inserted into our uterus to be owned by the same people who create lanolin-filled cheap-ass lip balm. Cool.
Terrible. Chapstick's fucking awful.
Chapstick is really not great. It will actually make your lips
worse.
chapped. Yes. Well, the FDA also doesn't regulate skincare and cosmetics unless it has SPF or retinol in it.
Oh,
So the FDA doesn't regulate what goes into chapstick at all.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. Let me tell you about regulations with the FDA. Okay.
I don't even know why we bother to have an FDA.
It's useless. With this sale of the Dalkon Shield to A.H. Robbins, the four men get 10% of all gross sales in North America and $35,000 per year for serving as consultants for the company. In 1971, this 1.1% birth control rate was all over the place. Like, everyone was seeing it. Everyone wanted this IUD because they're like, bro.
Look at it, so fancy.
Oh my God, like, put it in my uterus right
Put it
now.
up there.
And it seemed like a perfect and ideal way for any woman to prevent pregnancy safely. And at its peak, 2.8 million women used the Dalkon Shield in the U.S. and another 1.1 million overseas. It cost A.H. Robbins 35 cents to make one IUD. They sold it to doctors' offices for $4.35 and then sold it to the consumer for $12.
Oh shit! That was
The
a lot.
markup on the product was insane.
Wow.
And everyone was making a shit ton of money.
That's how it began.
But at the same time, it was hella affordable for people.
That's
It was
right.
still the most affordable, and they were like, bro. But the markup was like insane. One of the first documented failures of the Dalkon Shield came in 1973 after it had already been inserted into over 2 million women.
Ooh.
Doctors at the University of Arizona Medical Center inserted the Dalkon Shield into a patient who ended up becoming pregnant. At this point, it was also apparently fucking standard to leave the IUD in during pregnancy. Is that not insane? And that was just like a little blip in my research. There was like
That's
nothing
because
said about that.
There's been no studies on women, but it's rare. It's
Oh my
only
God.
men. It's just
Oh, girl, don't you even, girl, you don't even know.
Oh my God.
So the patient started presenting with flu-like symptoms, and 3 days later, she miscarried. Trigger warning. I actually meant to also put a trigger warning in the beginning. I wanted to give a trigger warning because thinking about how an IUD goes in really like makes me
It's
like
not-
move around.
it's-
Like it
and
makes
it
me feel
is.
some type
From
of way.
being like having it put in you too, it fucking hurts.
Yeah,
and
it's a
not
lot.
fun.
So I just want to give a trigger warning that like a trigger warning, there's a lot of things being inserted into people and shot into people with needles.
All of our
and-
uteruses.
Oh,
are
if
just
uteruses
shaky.
make you feel weird, this is not the episode for you.
If you like the patriarchy, don't listen either. God.
So the patient started presenting with flu-like symptoms, and 3 days later, she miscarried her 19-week-old fetus and died of a bacterial infection.
Jesus.
By 1974, 2.5 million women had the Dalkon IUD.
Wow.
Remember that 1.1% pregnancy rate?
Mm-hmm.
It was bigger than 1.1%.
Did it go up?
The clinical trial that Hugh Davis conducted actually only lasted 5.5 months per patient. People test that shit over years.
Wow.
And so several of the test subjects actually said during the trial later that Dr. Davis told them they had to use a spermicidal foam in addition to the Dalkon Shield, which guess what? Skews the results of his fucking...
Of course it does.
Makes it look way better.
Also, guess what? A.H. Robbins knew this before buying the product.
Yep.
A
Yes, he
doctor named Fred Clark had a doctor named Fred Clark had observed Dr. Davis before the company was purchased, and according to his notes, 26 of 832 patients had become pregnant with the IUD inserted, which drops our number from a 1.1% pregnancy rate to a 3.1% pregnancy rate. And
Jesus.
anybody who has ever tried to prevent pregnancy knows that that's like a big jump. That's a really big jump.
Yeah.
I mean, for as long as I've been alive, birth control has been 99% effective.
Yes.
Like, I've never heard of it being any less. And even that is, like, just enough to make you, like,
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, I get that you
Like
gotta
a
have the
condom,
1%.
and it's like,
but, So, lawyers from A.H. Robbins later claimed that Fred Clark's secretary had actually transcribed the numbers incorrectly, and it was supposed to say 6 out of 832 women, not 26 out of
And then they
832.
fucking blamed the woman.
Yeah.
Oh, you know those women. They just can't write numbers right.
Well, Tori can't. She can't fucking read.
Not right now. Not right now.
There was a ton of convoluted information about whose fault it was, and just everyone was going in circles.
Usual.
Yeah. A.H. Robbins eventually does their own trial, and they come out at a 2% pregnancy rate. And 2 other medical facilities also tested it and got percentages ranging from 5 to 10%.
Wow.
If someone said there's a 90% chance you won't get pregnant, no, that's too much. I need more. I need more than that. That's way too much.
10% is a pretty big percentage.
Yeah.
But nobody gives a fuck or does anything because everyone is terrible and the FDA is stupid.
100%.
By 1974, 17 deaths were linked directly to the device. We now, though, know that it's closer to 24. And according to Behind the Bastards, which is my husband's favorite podcast, for every $1 million A.H. Robbins profited from selling the Shield, customers spent $20 million on medical care due to the illnesses relating to the Shield.
Wow.
That's crazy.
6 months after the Dalkon Shield went to market, Fred Clark had actually ignored an internal memo expressing concern about the tail of the IUD. The memo said the tail could pose a serious threat to women, and the multiple threads on the tail could basically invite bacteria from the outside of the body and into the sterile uterus, leading to massive infections. However, he was told that the tail of the IUD was covered in a sheath kind of material, so the bacteria couldn't adhere to the string. But the ends of the string didn't have that sheath around it, so it was a completely exposed end.
Yeah, it looks
with
just
the
like
sheath.
literal string.
It literally looks like
thread.
wired string. It's weird.
Yeah.
And it was still causing bacteria to be absorbed through the ends of it and then travel through the sheath into the sterile uterus. When he suggested covering the ends, he was told that men had already been complaining about feeling the strings during intercourse, and they didn't want to make it more uncomfortable for them. And all the money they had to improve the IUD went directly into the male sensitivity column.
Of course. Fucking motherfuckers. God damn it.
Shortly after the purchase of the Dalkon Shield, the first thing they do is find ways to cut corners to save money on the new IUD. The first thing they do is combine manufacturing with the chapstick location. Just to be clear, a product being inserted into a woman's uterus is being made by the same people who make chapstick. Not only is there zero quality control, but as the IUDs are being created by the chapstick people, they're breaking holes into that protective sheath. So when they're going to send out thousands of these,
they're not sterile.
No, they were just like packing them and throwing them into boxes and like shipping them off. So Broski, who sent out the memo, was like, if we thought this was going to cause an infection before, now there's multiple points of entry in the sheath for bacteria to cling on to.
Yeah.
So he starts performing experiments on his own and finds that, yes, in fact, the tail does cause infections. And when he takes this information to his boss says, quote, "Your conscience does not pay your salary."
That's why you have to be a literal psychopath to be a CEO, I feel. Like, I think that's a real thing. Like, you have to be.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
There's got to be a percentage.
All while this is happening, women with the IUD are suffering from pelvic inflammatory disease and blood poisoning.
Oh my
A 20-year-old secretary named Linda had actually gone to Dr. Davis himself to have her Dalkon Shield placed in 1970. 4 months later, she was having insane pain in her pelvis and tons of bleeding.
Ugh.
She called Dr. Davis, who told her it's fine, this happens sometimes, but after a year, she finally got the IUD removed. However, 5 years after having her Dalkon Shield removed, she started experiencing extreme stomach pain. And while on a vacation in New York City, she was rushed to the hospital with a fever, and they told her that her uterus was completely surrounded by scar tissue and covered in cysts.
Oh my God.
At this point, she was 25.
Holy hell. They probably just took it all out, didn't they?
8 surgeries later, she was completely unable to have children. And what we know now is that 327,000 other women had the same thing happen.
My God.
A.H. Robbins basically shot back, saying everything they were complaining about was coming from their, quote, poor hygiene and multiple sexual partners.
Call him a dirty whore.
Yep.
That's what you gotta do.
It's not our product killing women. It's the fact that they're dirty whores. Dirty whores who even need it in the first place.
Bunch of prostitution whores.
Reports from some doctors also found the IUD free-floating in the body because it ripped through the uterus. Some women who got pregnant with the IUD were having spontaneous or late-term miscarriages, and some women even gave birth to deformed and brain-damaged babies. At least 20 women died because of the complications related to the Dalkon Shield, and A.H. Robbins made a deal with the government to send thousands of these IUDs to third-world countries. And in order to offset the cost to ship overseas, they stopped sterilizing them to make them 48% cheaper. And by the way, this is after they knew that women were dying, and they literally made like a last-ditch attempt to like literally make money.
Sterilizing them.
Yeah.
So send a bunch of sterilizing or murderous from bacteria things to third world countries.
Yep.
Thin out their population.
Yep.
The government didn't issue a recall until 1976, which was 2 years after the Dalkon Shield was taken off the market.
Wow.
Of the 769,000 that were sent overseas, less than half were returned, and there are still clinics in these countries offering it.
Holy God.
During this entire shit show, Dr. Davis is basically calling all of this fake news. He's thinking that other companies have made their own IUD and they're just trying to scare him, and like he's basically completely thinking this is all false. And
does he really believe that, or is he just
he goes a little batty at the end? Okay. So A.H. Robbins finally suspended the sale of the Dalkon Shield in 1974, and of course a ton of lawsuits followed. Ugh. More than 2.5 million women had the shield in their body at this point, and 200,000, I also heard 400,000, testified against the shield and filed claims against A.H. Robbins. After A.H. Robbins lost one of the first settlements, they fired their lawyer and hired someone else to help them win these cases. So, immediately they were like, you lost. Bye. Their focus was to either prolong the process so long that it would force the women into bankruptcy, or they would bring each one of them onto the stand and totally expose everything about their sex life to deter any other women coming forward. Say. They were also attempting to prolong the trial as much as possible because they were still actively selling it to other countries. Turns out that the wife of one of the lawyers defending A.H. Robbins was actually a user of the Dalkon Shield. So they decide to put him on the stand, and they ask all these horrible questions about he and his wife's sex life, her doctor's appointments, and just super, super personal questions to get him to see that what he was doing by defending A.H. Robbins was just as bad. He's like, your wife was one of these people. What the fuck, dude? And this fantastic genius decides to take a step forward and ask the guy, wouldn't you want to know if a medical product was dangerous before you used it? And the guy is like, I mean, sure, I guess. And he's like, okay, let me rephrase. If a product was likely to make your dick fall off, wouldn't you want to know? And the guy was like, okay, well, yeah. I need my dick. Like 10 out of 10 for that question. Mm-hmm. These trials went into the 80s, and a ton more women ended up coming forward for the lawsuit. In 1984, A.H. Robbins created a program to warn women of the effects of the Dalkon Shield and offered to pay to have them removed. But at this point, people were like, too little, too late. That's
Yeah.
literally the least you could do is pay to
Mhm.
get these things out of us. Like, we need more. A federal judge in Minnesota who dealt with 23 of these cases called the Dalkon Shield, quote, an instrument of death, mutilation, and disease, and accused 3 top officials of the A.H. Robbins Company of putting profits above the health of women who use their device. Quote, your company, without warning to women, invaded their bodies by the millions and caused them injuries by the thousands. Your company, in the face of overwhelming evidence, denies its guilt and continues its monstrous mischief. You've taken the bottom line as your guiding beacon and the low road as your route. This is corporate irresponsibility at its meanest. Less than an hour after the hearing, A.H. Robbins issued a statement denying the judge's assertions, and the company, based in Richmond, Virginia, accused the judge of bias and a gross abuse of judicial discretion and power, which is true. I mean, he was definitely biased against them, so, like, I get it. But he's right. So, I mean, I don't really, like, what are you going to do?
It's hard.
Yeah. He was obviously removed for being biased.
Yes.
But go you for saying all those things. Like,
Yeah.
10 out of 10. And an interesting twist,
Oh.
the original defense lawyer who lost that first case, who was fired by A.H. Robbins, he took the motherfucking stand and confirmed that the company had destroyed documents relating to the device's inefficiency and also how they were all aware that it was hurting women.
Oh, hell yeah.
I bet he got disbarred.
He testified that he was instructed to destroy all incriminating evidence. And there's even audio of the trial, and one of the lawyers defending a plaintiff can be heard clearly saying, "Can you fucking believe this?" In 1985, the A.H. Robbins Foundation filed for bankruptcy so they wouldn't have to pay any more of the women.
I
And
hate people.
by 1986, an estimated 100,000 American women still had the Dalkon Shield in their body. Money was set aside for litigation, but after it was all said and done, on average, each woman got roughly $1,000 each.
Yeah.
Fuck, that's
like,
nothing. For
That's
medical
the
shit.
problem with class actions.
Yeah.
I mean, I think.
A.H. Robbins was sold to another company for $3 billion, and the owners of A.H. Robbins profited $385 million tax-free. No laws were technically broken. Technically, there was no,
Yep.
there were no repercussions for the company, the
Nope.
employees, or Dr. Davis, who created this death trap of a fucking intrauterine device.
Oh my god, you guys stop.
More than 300,000 lawsuits were filed against the A.H. Robbins Company, which is the largest liability case since asbestos.
Wow.
Yeah. After all of this, Dr. Davis got a little paranoid, and it got a little out of control. He turned up into a sort of anxiety-ridden hermit who believed all the plaintiffs were going to find him, and he wouldn't leave the house without a bodyguard, and also he spent all of his time trying to invent a new device that would redeem his reputation, but ended up being committed to a mental hospital where he remained for 10 years.
So he's like,
Sorry, not sorry.
that's like classic villain and
Yeah.
story.
Yeah, 100. Like he's literally in his lab.
Yeah,
like yes, crazy hair and all.
Yep.
Dr. Davis stood by the creation of the Dalkon Shield until he died of pancreatic cancer in 1996.
Somebody should have shoved one up his fucking asshole.
As a result of this case, the FDA put a plan into action so that today they do have to improve medical devices, thank God. IUD sales went completely downhill after this, but in the last 10 or 15 years, it has become one of the top
Which
forms
is
of birth
why-
control today.
Which is why we think of it as being relatively new. 'Cause
Yep.
It's,
Yeah.
Because there
And
was a scare for a
man,
while.
I have had every lady doctor that I have ever gone to, and a male, like, tried so hard to push the IUD on me. And I was like, I don't want it. And Marina, in particular. I'm like, I don't want it.
I don't want it now.
Because I know, everybody has the like, well, I heard from a friend of theirs, new person, but I actually know, like, 1-to-1, 3 different people.
I developed cysts from it.
I mean, in researching all of this, what I found is that women's health is completely down the fucking drain, and there's no hope for anything we put into our bodies.
Mhm.
And
Or on our faces, or our
I have
hair.
learned you guys should no.
okay,
Where am I? Goodbye.
all right.
Fat Doctor UK.
Oh.
She's a doctor, and she with research talks about all of the lies we're told about our weight and our symptoms, and usually everything is owned by a pharmaceutical company that is pushing this so that you get like this certain thing.
And they'll give, the doctors tons of samples, and then patients that are lower income or whatever, they're like, oh, let me just give you a ton of samples. And then that's what people stay on and then use. And so they make a shit ton of money off of it.
Yeah, and they skew the statistics legally because they learned from that not to do it a little more sneaky.
It's just pretty wild seeing how little money goes into like what's actually safe for us.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
especially mostly women.
Well, I mean, and the studies are like all the forms of birth control have been inserted or ingested by women. Yep. Like there's only recently that like conversations about male birth control is even like really becoming a thing that they're figuring out now.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to me going back through the history of birth control, seeing not only how long it took them to learn that men do not have really any bearing on children. Like women are the fucking creators of the people, you know what I mean? So, and they didn't learn that until like the 40s or whatever it was, and how sex even fucking worked. And I just can't,
it's just the rules they put on our fucking bodies too, that they don't have to abide by, but they have to. We do. It's
and
just
the money that goes into male pleasure for it. I just can't.
And Planned Parenthoods need to be supported. That's a Lindsay, but it's just like
It's just
some people can't have insurance, and that
it's amazing.
They're not going there for abortions, guys. Maybe one tiny %. The rest is for yearly like checkups and cancer.
Crazy.
Cancer screenings.
It's like
So I am sorry for telling you that terrible story. That was the end of it. It was a little different. It was corporate murder.
I liked it. Well, I mean, I liked that it was different, and
it was only 20 women that we know of. I'm positive it's got to be in the hundreds, if not thousands.
Absolutely.
Well, and I mean, if you listen to the Bailey Sarian one, when they were testing the pill, they tested it on Puerto Rican women, and that's a whole other mass sterilization.
That's insane.
Like
well, I was even talking to Brittany and Derek last night about we were talking about like fears we have. She has like a fear that one day when she gets old she'll have a heart attack.
Oh Jesus.
And I was like, did you know that like women present heart attacks differently? Did you guys know that?
I've heard a little bit, but I don't know more.
Men, it's chest pain
and the
arm pain. Women, it can literally be like fatigue and dizziness, and it said a pain between your shoulder blades. It presents completely differently, where women can be walking around living their life having multiple heart attacks, whereas for a man it's like
well, think about it. Anytime you see a woman in a movie have a heart attack, what does she do?
Oh no, yeah, and it's different.
It's the way
and like
men do it.
I'm like, the fact that we don't know this, I learned it from Grey's Anatomy, man. I had to Google it because I was like, what?
Is that
and
real?
it's true. And I was like, how is that not a thing that I know what like, and the inside of your body, it's just amazing that things like that can be so different, even though we all have the same liver and heart and two lungs, but like females are it's just
completely different,
and it's fascinating to me.
And nobody cared enough to see if we were or not.
Yeah, man. So like,
beginning.
Do better.
Or even now.
Yeah. I know there's some people doing good shit, but it's still...
Apparently, it's becoming very well known in bars. It's a trick that you can do where you can walk up to the bartender and ask for an angel shot. If you ask for an angel shot neat, someone will escort you to your vehicle. If you ask for an angel shot dressed, someone will call you an Uber or a Lyft. Or an angel shot with lime, they will call the police.
Yeah.
So, remember who you are.
Oh, are we done now? Okay, bye.
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know.
Is there anything else we want to talk about?
Is there anything?
I'm not full.
Okay. Well, remember who you are and what you represent, and don't represent billion-dollar companies that hate women.
Yeah.
Please.
Please don't.
That's it. That was terrible.
I love you guys. I'm sorry we ruined your day and your life.
Sorry if your uterus hurts.
But we love you.
Uteruses before deuteruses.
Oh!
Okay. Well, see you next week.
Love you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.